Hey there, Central Texas. Let's dive into some monthly market stats in real estate. I'm Cindy, your favorite real estate agent here in Central Texas, and let's dive in. So, behind me, the side of me, I have some market stats that are brought to you or me by Unlock MLS. I also use Market Viewer, and Market Viewer is great. It's a little what I call very like that's like 100,000 foot view, and this is much more granular, right? So I'm going to go into some really granular data, and I hope that it is of use if you're either a buyer or a seller. I'll give you some tips and tricks along the way if you're thinking about putting your house on the market or you're thinking about buying a house, on how to use these stats to make sure that you are getting the most out of the sale of your home or getting the most out of purchasing a home, right? All right, so this is the sales pricing tab, and it's the monthly sales pricing for residential properties in Williamson County. So all these tabs I'm going on over are going to be specifically for Williamson County, and you can kind of see, this is Florence, right? So the median sales price up there is $625,000. Liberty Hills 505. In Leander it's 419. In Round Rock East it's 475. In Cedar Park 450. So on and so forth, right? So this is kind of a little heat map on pricing, so you kind of see where the pricing falls. So if you think of like this line right here, that's 35. It goes all the way down. So that's kind of what I call east of 35, and this is west of 35. So you kind of see the delineation or price point just as a backbone of 35, right? That is kind of bisecting our market. So interesting enough, so this is new construction and resale. And in my world, they are two different products. I mean, yes, they're both houses, but pricing is different, and how I kind of look at comparables is much different. So, but in this case, everything is in one. And I just have to do one caveat. For new construction, that's only new construction that's placed in the multiple listing service. And for the consumer, you have to understand, builders don't put all of their inventory on the multiple listing service. They just don't. They put some, but not all. So even with new construction, couldn't put in all of the sales, but it's the lion's share. So what I would like to point out here is the number of sales are up 1.9% from last year. So we've gotten more sales in the month of February, more than what we had last year. Good news, right? Now, the median sales price is down almost 6% from the previous year. So that's looking at February 2025 and comparing it to February 2026. So that's how you're getting those differentials in the price in the percentage. Total volume. So what I mean by total volume is you take every sale that's happened in Williamson County that's on the multiple listing service, and you add it up. It's $309 million worth of sales, and the average sales price is $449. So if you do statistics, you know the difference between median and average. There's a difference. So in the average price per square foot is $195 down, and the median days on market is up 13 days from the previous year. So a little bit of a mixed bag. But I'd like to point out, in Williamson County, right, the total, by far, almost double, the price point is $300 to $399. That's the lion's share, that's the jam in Williamson County on the price point for homes being sold. And that's good to know when you are buying. Now, granted, it's not $625 like it is in Florence, but it's $330 up in Manor. It's $300 out in Hutto Taylor, right? So, Market pricing. Interesting enough, these are the previous year. So 25 is orange. And I like to see this nice, what I can explain to buyers and sellers, this kind of the cyclical nature of what happens in Austin or in our marketplace. We tend to start off a little low, right, on the sales price in January. We pick up for the summer and spring. We kind of peak out in the April to June, July. We drop back down after school starts, and then we kind of bubble up into November, and then we kind of bottom out in December, and we pick back up in the spring. That's classically kind of how the things flow in and out in Williamson County. And you can kind of see that in 2024. You can see that in 2025. But February, maybe there's some things that haven't been fully reported yet. This is only the 9th. Sometimes this number might change in February because maybe not everything has been reported, but it's down $5,000. All right, so I would say that maybe it's more like flat than down, but it looks like a lot on that graph. And then prices by year, all right? I don't think anybody's shocked that 2022 is the peak, right? I don't think anybody's shocked. You should be shocked. It's like the peak of COVID, that the median sales price was $480, and now we're down to $399, which is good. For home buyers, paying less is good. For home sellers, I have a lot of home sellers that wish, they could still get what they got in 2020, 2021. It's just not going to happen. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Then we've got the market activity here, right? So the number of sales, like I said before, peaks in May, June, July. That's the peak in our market. You want to make sure that you have your home positioned, if you're selling, home positioned to close May, June, July. So if you're getting on the market in July, might have missed the mark. Not saying it's going to sell. You're just going to have less buyers out there looking, so you have to price accordingly. That's okay. It's okay. So the next tab is buyer demand, right? If you're selling, you want to know what the buyer demand is. And again, we see the same price point, $300 to $399, number of sales, again up, but days on market, right? So the days on market hold true to what I said earlier. February, it's at the peak, meaning that's where you're not having the least amount of buyer demand because you're all on the market longer. It drops in the summer, it picks back up in February, April, and then it drops in the summer and the spring and summer, and then picks back up. It's in and out. So positioning your property to know when you're going to have the most eyeballs on it is important. And so again, buyer demand. So this is an interesting graph. I like looking at this because this is percent over under asking. And as you notice, everything is under. Everything is zero. There is no over zero. Like there's no 1% or 2%. Everything is like, what's 1.9? That's 3.0. That's 3.3 in December. So that's over asking negative 3.3. And you're like, interesting, Cindy. Why is there 90 there? All right. So, tip of the trade. When you're on Zillow, when you're on Homes.com, when you're on any third party, what I call a consumer site, right? You don't see the original sales price. You just don't. I do. So what this tells me is from the original list price, the seller had to come down 10.5% from their original list price in order to go under contract, and then they still negotiated down 3.5%. That's how much the sellers are coming down. And so from a buyer, you need to know that information, right? I mean, how are you going to negotiate if you don't know this information? Right? Now, if you're dealing with a property that's been on the market one day and you've got 15 offers on that property, that's not the average. That is a perfectly priced, perfectly positioned property in an area that is red hot for whatever reason. It happens. It's like the weather. People think that real estate is static everywhere, and what you read on the national news is what's happening here. And real estate is super local. It is like to the street local, right? If I get 10 inches of rain at my address, but it doesn't rain at Camp Mayberry, or doesn't rain at at the airport, we record no rain. It didn't rain today, but it rained cats and dogs at my house. That's kind of like real estate. The news is saying it didn't rain today. I'm like, it rained in my house. It rained a lot. So, real estate is super local. And so again, you're looking at buyer demand on days on market. The most demand is in the 300 to 499. Makes sense. Actually, really is 200 to 500. That's where the bulk of the buyers are at. And it drops significantly as you get up the scale. And that makes sense. As the price goes up, less and less people can afford that house. It's just economics. Inventory. All right? Inventory is what's available out there for a buyer to go buy. And in February, the number of new listings was 1,149. That's down 4.8% for the previous year. But the number of pending contracts in the same month is up 18.2%. And I'm telling you, it's interest rates. Interest rates, they are down in the fives. I don't see them getting any lower. Maybe the high fours. But if you're waiting for a 2.5 or a 3% interest rate to come back, you're going to be running for the rest of your life. It's just not going to happen. Unless something so big happens, like, we happened in 2008, which I hope we never have that happen again because we had a complete lending meltdown. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen to anybody. We don't want that kind of issue happen to our economy where that makes it necessary, in my opinion. So, again, months of inventory. It's kind of skewed, right? So, in that month of inventory, if you're a house that's 1.4 million or more, there's almost 30 months of inventory. That's a lot, right? So but the number of buyers that can afford that is smaller, right? So as you get higher in the price point, the number of buyers, collapse. But if you're in the 500,000 or less, you are what I say is in a classic seller's market. So why doesn't it feel like a seller's market? This is my theory. My theory is National Association of Realtors says anything under 6 months of inventory is a classic seller's market. Anything with 6 months or more is a classic buyer's market. My theory is when those kind of statistics came out, we lived in a very different world when it came to real estate. All right? We just did. And what I mean by that is real estate agents had all the information. We had it in books. We had it in our MLS. And unless you had access to the MLS or access to a real estate agent, you couldn't see the house. You couldn't. There was no Zillow. There was no Homes.com. There's no portals. There's no websites. There's nothing. So with the advent of technology, my theory is it's like Instagram. I mean, you look at the house, flip, 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 flip. Didn't float my boat. And to never look at it again. You didn't even get off the couch and you flip through a house, maybe completely, 40, 50, 60 photos with a Mattersport. You could walk through it, a video walkthrough. other than walking through and smelling it, you walk the house and you're like, no, I'm good. Don't want to see it. That doesn't float my boat. So people have more access, ready access to information. So I'm going to show a tab later on that's really going to explain why I think 3 months, 3, 4, 5 months. I would say if you were on the market in 5 months, everybody's seen the property. Everybody that's in the market to see your property has seen it, and they said, nope, not gonna look, not buying it. All right, so price drops. Very important in this market as every agent and every seller tries to find that nice landing ground to sell. In this price point, with the highest number of active listings is 300 to 399, you're going to see the most price adjustments. It makes total sense, right? And the price drop outcomes, right, which I find interesting. So when you had the number of days from the price drop to under contract, so number of days from price drop to under contract, 21. 14, 15, 20. Like, I can't explain, I can't be any more clear. For a seller, you need to be under contract in 30 days or less, or you're doing a price adjustment. Because what this says is once you do a price drop that gets you under contract, so they track it. So you do a price drop today, and in 20 days you're under contract. That means you're priced appropriately. Because somebody agreed with you to get in their car, come to your house, look at it, get a lender, buy it. I can't be any more clear on why pricing is important if you really actually want to sell it. I love this one. So price drops over time. So as you see in January 23, we're like, this is when the market is adjusting to 2023, right? So we're doing price drops, woo! And then we're still doing price drops, and we're still doing price drops. And so we're still, even in this market, trying to find where the soft spot is. But once we find it, you're under contract. Within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're under contract. Now, the trick of the matter is how many price drops did you have to do to get to that? Was it 1? Was it 10? It depends on where you started, right? Because the seller mentality is, and I love this, seller's like, I'll just negotiate. I'm like, no, you're not. When you price it high, you don't negotiate with it. You're just negotiating with yourself. There's nobody coming along to negotiate with you. So if you price it 15% over what the market's bearing, guess who you're negotiating with? You're negotiating with your listing agent. That's the only person you're negotiating with. Because nobody's coming around to actually offer you a sales price because it's so overpriced. And I hear it from sellers all the time. I want to negotiate. Like, with who? Who are you going to be negotiating when you're priced overpriced? There's nobody coming to put an offer in. How are you going to negotiate? You're overpriced. Anyways, it's the weirdest, like, I don't understand the logic, but there's so many sellers that I meet with that are like, I want to negotiate. I'm like, with who? You're going to have to do a price drop to negotiate. And that person's going to see how many times you did a price drop to get where you're at. It's all there. Let's see. This is a yearly price and sales and price. Sorry. So again, you're seeing the same kind of methodology. So you're seeing where the bulk of the sales are happening in Williamson County, 300 and 399. But the median sales price is 417. The average sales price is 475. With the year, 4.86 billion. That's total sales if you add everything up, right? So as you can see again, we are median in 2022. That was the sales price, median sales price, and the price per square foot. That was in 2022. That was a peak. I have a lot of sellers trying to get to that sales price. It's still, but we are, already adjusted back to, $100,000 down. And what I see in the marketplace is like, or you see, like sales prices are crashing. I'm like, they're not crashing. If you take a look at appreciation previous, 280, 296, that's what, $15,000? What's that? $15,000? $15,000. You see what I'm saying? The normal appreciation that was happening 2020, and then this 340 to 469. That's not sustainable, guys. Never was. You can't keep going up on that trajectory. Now, if you bought at that time, there was a reason why you bought at that time. There was a lack of inventory. People were moving around due to COVID. There was restrictions. There's all of this stuff. There's all of this confluence of data and information that required people to move. And they made a decision to buy a house at that sales price because that was the right sales price at that time. At 536, that's the right sales price to buy it at a time. Now, if I want to sell it now, I have to come to realization that that's the right price now, 454. I can't go back in time and undo that. I just have to ride it out until I can reach back up into the appreciation for this appreciation line to catch up with me in time. And that's how I explained it to buyers back when I was selling during the COVID, because they were spending, putting additional money to closing costs, putting additional money to down payment, putting additional money over list in order to get the house. That's the way the market was then. Again, this is why. With demand, right? 5.2% over max, and the max is 5.2. And then you had 5 days on market. That's nuts. 5 days on market. You're not even looking at a house. You're literally flying through a house. But if it's kind of hard to see this gray, see that gray line that barely you can see? I don't even think you can see it on the screen. There is no inventory, right? We're kind of back to normal inventory. You're going to see this gray background. You up and down, 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 like a little wave. That's what the market is saying is, inventory hitting and then coming back out, and hitting and selling and coming back out. It's like waves. So during COVID, post-COVID, we're still working that out. Sales, again, weekly sales. So this is a weekly check-in, right? So year to date, so this is as of the 10th. I don't know how it's the 10th because tomorrow's the 10th. Anyways, sales are down. Number of sales are down by 7%. Volume is down about 10%. Price per square foot down about 6%. Originals to close were still in the almost double digits, but new pendings are up. Again, pendings are up, which tells me that there is still pent up buyer focus out there, and that's interest rates, which I've already kind of mentioned before. But interest rates, I think, are to a point where we are going to see buyers move because it's just not going to come any further down. Inventory. Again, we're tracking new listings. We're going up. We're going to continue to see that go up, all right, through May, and then it's going to track back down. And that's normal. So if I'm a seller, I'm getting my listing ready now. I'm contacting my listing agent. I'm getting the paint done. I'm washing the windows inside and out. I'm cleaning the outside. I'm power washing those sidewalks. I'm putting that mulch down. I'm trimming the trees back. Changing all the light bulbs that are the same color temperature. Like, just simple stuff. I mean, people think getting a house ready is like, preparing, to go to the moon, but it's not. It's just logical stuff. Take care of all the things that are broken. Take care of all the things that are dusty. Make sure all the light bulbs match. Make sure all the fixtures work. That the door locks work. I can get in and out. The doors are clean. Like, baseboards are clean. Simple stuff. But again, historical data, again. So we're seeing the peak of sales in 2021. Made sense. Previous to that, we're at 11,000, 12,000. 2022, we're brought down to 11,000. And we're still slightly off by 2,000 number of sales that we should be seeing on the market. But it's not crashing. It's just not. It's just taking longer to sell. And interest rates, a couple years ago made people a little skittish, but they've settled down. And as long as nothing crazy happens in the world, they should sit right about where they're at. But work with a lender to make sure that you know what the current lending information is going on. So again, that kind of goes back up to the top. That's at 14,000, 13,000, and where we're at for this year. So we're about where we were at in 2018, almost right on the money. We're a little lower than where we were in February of 2018, right? So listings, we're about where we would be. I feel like a lot of the January listings are people that expired the last quarter and coming back online, giving another try. And this is breaking down by bed and price point. So what you're seeing is, 2 bedrooms average 1,600 square feet, 3 bedrooms 1,800 square feet, 4 bedrooms 2,500 square feet, and above 5 bedrooms of square feet. If I'm an investor, this is important. So you're in the right kind of like square footage for the bedrooms. I would say 4's best, 3 minimum, 5 is really big, 2 is maybe too small for the average group of people renting a home. I don't know how they get 3.6. You don't have 0.6 bedrooms, but anyways, it is what it is. So again, when you're taking a look at this price point of $300 to $399, the number of bedrooms is where you see the bulk of 3 bedrooms. Almost equal to 3 to 4. 3 to 4. 71 days on market. With, only 2.2%, price adjustment. All right. And so the last one is the market cycle. So this is what I was kind of talking about earlier about seller's market being under contract within 30 days. So once you flip into the past the 50 days on market, you're in a buyer's market. You just don't know it. It could be 2 months of inventory in your area, but if you're reached that 60 mark, you are in a buyer's market. You are what I call shelf worn, right? I'm sure any of you have ever done any kind of shopping, and you go into a store and you find something, and man, it's just not in my price point, but I really like that, whatever, right? And you go back next week, still there. You're like, that's weird. Figured they'd all be gone because it's something that it's just amazing, and I can't believe it's not being selling. Go back again, same spot, price drop. You're like, oh, well, that's interesting. Go back again next week, and it's back store. And you're like, oh, well, I'll just wait for it to get to clearance. That's what buyers are thinking when you're at the 60 mark. They're looking for the clearance items. And when sellers are like, I want to negotiate with the seller, when I want to negotiate with the buyer, you have to have a buyer to negotiate with. So pricing it correctly so that you're under contract in 30 days is going to yield you the most amount of money and the least amount of hassle, because you don't have to do showings for 60, 80, 90 days. You don't have to have your house show ready for that time period, right? It matters. So I can do this for any area. So if you want to set an appointment with me to go over your city or your zip or your house type or the number of bedrooms, I can mix and match this to whatever configuration that you want to take a look at. And it's a really great tool to get educated as a buyer, and it's a really great tool to get educated as a seller. So if you want more information, you can like this video. You can find me on my website. You can set an appointment, send me a DM, however you want to do. And I'd be happy to set an appointment. We can do this by Zoom. We can meet for coffee, however you want to do it. And like I said at the beginning, again, my name is Cindy, and I am your favorite Central Texas real estate agent, here to educate you on a monthly basis.